It hurts. The wait continues for India's quest for another World Cup in one-day international. Last evening, we were all set, but as Osama said before we went to the break, it was just one of those days, and that's how sports, it's all works like that only.
That absolutely works like that, and you have to give credit, Ankit, to Australia, the way they came into this match and the way they basically went into with their strategies, etc. And it was in fact a tactical masterclass, and we will be discussing about that. But before we go to our guest, Sabah Karim, former India cricketer, also want to talk about the Prime Minister who met the Indian players to encourage them after a disappointing loss. And the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, visited the Indian cricket team dressing room after the Men in Blue lost the Cricket World Cup final to Australia last evening in Ahmedabad. Mohammad Shami and Ravindra Jadeja, as well as other players, they took to social media to share pictures of that meeting. And you can see the Prime Minister there meeting the Indian cricketers and trying to console them and trying to lift their morale.
Absolutely. In fact, this is what most of these cricketers have also said on the social media platforms, that it was good to see the Prime Minister there, who in fact encouraged them. His tweet, the Prime Minister's tweet, also spoke about the fantastic campaign. It was a dream campaign, 10 continuous victories, and it was just yesterday. It just seems that somehow the Australians managed whatever plan they had, they were able to execute that plan to the T. And, sadly, and like any sports, if we have to admit, they were a better team yesterday, the day that possibly mattered the most.
Absolutely, Ankit. And we'll try and find out the reasons and try and discuss some of the reasons why we might think and why a lot of Indian fans think that that went wrong for Team India. And starting with the pitch. And there has been a lot of talk about how this was a slow pitch and why it might have backfired for Team India. And let's get Sabah Karim's view on that. Sabah bhai, there has been a lot of talk about the pitch and why it might have backfired. Ricky Ponting, in fact, he was talking to Fox Cricket and he said that it was a very, very subcontinent pitch and that possibly backfired for India. Your thoughts on the pitch from yesterday?
So, Osama, even if it was a subcontinent wicket, we should have been prepared for that. See, there are certain elements in a particular game which are the uncontrollables. The surface, the way it behaves, its behavior in the first half of the innings, its behavior in the second part of the innings, second part of the match. All these are uncontrollables. Yeah. Now, if you set aside all these uncontrollable factors, let's look at the factors which was within our control. And I'm saying this so that we don't repeat it. And I think I've said this in the earlier chat with you, Osama, that since 2014, India has lost several final matches, including Champions Trophy final in 2017, World Cup T20, if I remember correctly, 2014 the final that was played in Sri Lanka. Then we have lost 3 or 4 semi-finals. So why does it happen all the time? So unless we address it and we try and resolve this, why is it that in such special matches or big clashes, India has floundered? So if we get down to the nitty-gritties of the game that transpired yesterday, number one is Australia were right on top in terms of the decision making, and let me elucidate on the stats here. Now, this is the 5th game that was played at Ahmedabad. Out of this, 4 teams have won batting second, and only 1 team has won batting first, and that was Australia. Can you imagine having that kind of a background still for Pat Cummins to go out on a similar kind of surface and yet decide to bowl first? It was incredible. It was such a courageous call from Pat Cummins. And he said that in the post-match conference. He said that he just felt that the wicket might behave better in the second half. And I think with that kind of a gumption, he went ahead and he decided to bowl first. That was such a brave thing. I think that really helped Australia. Having said that, you also need the right kind of bowlers and your game plan and to be executed properly. And I think all that came to the fore from Australia's perspective. So I think right at the beginning, from the first ball, I think Australia were number one, much better prepared, and they were able to execute the game plans in a much better way than what India could do.
Absolutely, and as Osama was talking about other reasons, Abhay, the fielding, the Australian fielding was exceptional yesterday. Not only did they save runs, but I think the turning point, and we were discussing this yesterday as well, was that catch, Travis Head's catch of Rohit Sharma. That possibly changed the whole momentum as far as India's batting is concerned and the game.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think it all started before that catch also, Ankit. If you remember, the Australian players, especially all those who were inside the 30-yard circle, they were right on top of both the batters, of all the batters who were playing at that stage. Even that partnership between KL Rahul and Virat Kohli, both of them are so adept in maneuvering the field and picking those singles. But whenever they would play with a soft hand, you had backward point rushing in, you had cover rushing in, you had a mid wicket or short mid wicket rushing in. So there was no kind of escape route for Virat and KL Rahul to rotate the strike in a better manner. That is that partnership between Virat Kohli and KL Rahul. The run rate was 3.72, and I think that made a big difference. And I was watching Rahul Dravid's PC yesterday. It was. I mean, he talked about it that because we kept losing wickets, we really could not accelerate. But if you again go through some more detailing, Ankit and Osama, you'll notice that in that partnership between Virat Kohli and KL Rahul, they got their 50-run partnership. It took them 88 balls.
Absolutely.
In comparison, Travis Labuschagne, I think Australia was struggling at that stage. They were able to get those 50 runs in just 70 balls. You can understand, where India lost the game. So if you can really try and the area where India kind of lost the match, it was the slowness in particular partnership that hit us hard. That is why in the end we could not get another 30-40 runs on board.
Absolutely.
And in fact, Ankit, we were discussing this this partnership that Sabhabhai is mentioning, Virat Kohli and KL Rahul. There was a 97 ball boundaries drought, and the kind of players who are out there in the middle. Virat Kohli, he even if he doesn't get those boundaries, he makes sure that he gets those singles and turns them into doubles, and that is where India struggled. Sabhabhai, that boundaries drought, that 97 ball boundaries drought, do you think that added another layer of pressure on the two batters who were out there in the middle at that time?
Oh yes, definitely. Because generally, if you have noticed the trend of India's campaign so far in terms of their batting, Osama and Ankit, be it Virat Kohli or whether it is Shreyas Iyer or whether it is KL Rahul, all of them had batted at a very high strike rate. And that has been the trend so far in India's campaign. That is why India has dominated so much. I think that for some odd reason or some inexplicable reason, India kind of slowed down. And I think that is what has hit us hard. Maybe India felt, I'm not trying to be too critical, maybe India felt that on this kind of a surface, if they try and accelerate or if they try and go too hard, India may lose a wicket. And eventually, there was a possibility of India being bundled out below 200 or something like that. But you know what? That's where you need to play a little bit of fearless cricket without this fear of failure, and I think that's what India has done in the entire campaign so far. So I thought India maybe was a little bit a tad more conservative than it was required. I can understand the first 5-6 overs you take it because you're trying to consolidate, but once you have settled in, you need to apply pressure on the Australian bowling attack. We failed to do that. And I think yesterday 4 overs were bowled by Travis Head and Mitch Marsh. And one for 4 runs in the 2 overs and the other one went for 5 or 6 runs per over. You possibly can't allow Australia's 6th or 7th bowler to go for about 7 or 8 or 10 runs in 4 overs.
And so you're very true. In fact, we had Rohit threw all the caution to the wind while he was batting in the first 10. And post that, we saw possibly it was the nerves catching up on the big day and India's track record as far as ICC events are concerned. But one thing, and it has been said many, many times, at least since yesterday, Pat Cummins, who's possibly one of the most underrated captains, and specifically in context of Australia, the way he marshaled his resources and the way he was able to execute the plan which was drawn on paper, that was remarkable. Oh
yes, in a big way. I think he was like a master strategist there. the way he rotated the pace bowlers, the way he brought in Travis Head and Mitch Marsh, the way he brought in Glenn Maxwell. Can you imagine Rohit Sharma on fire and bringing on Glenn Maxwell? Yeah. Nobody would ever think of bringing on Glenn Maxwell against Rohit Sharma with that kind of form. But he persisted. I think that was the kind of options he had. And I think Pat Cummins, the way he was able to get back Mitchell Stark and then Josh Hazlewood in the middle overs, for him also to come in and bowl a period of time when India was looking to get back into the game through that partnership of Virat Kohli and KL Rahul was exemplary. And the second ball of his spell that Pat Cummins bowled, that was a slower delivery. Can you imagine Pat Cummins' second ball? So he really felt that in attack like this, he was able to read the wicket better, and that's what Pat Cummins, along with the other two bowlers, did that to perfection. Into the wicket, into the surface, slow bounces, just kept building up the pressure on the Indian batters. And I think that's when we go back to our earlier discussion, that no wonder India was unable to get a flurry of fours or over boundaries for that matter.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, but what's done is done. We have to look forward.
Which is the T20 World Cup.
The T20 World Cup, there'll be more the Champions Trophy, and we can go on naming it. And we are hoping that the tide will turn for India as far as the ICC events are concerned. Sabah Karim, thank you so much for joining us at this moment. Osama, always a pleasure to sit next to you and discuss any sport. With that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. News and updates continue on the broadcast.